This is live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and coming up in the next hour, India to host second Voice of Global South Summit in virtual format on Friday. Summit to focus on sharing key outcomes achieved in various G20 meetings under India's presidency. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh holds bilateral meetings with his Indonesian and Vietnamese counterparts in Jakarta, takes stock of bilateral defence relationship and recommit to further strengthen cooperation. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar concludes his 5-day visit to the United Kingdom, hopes for FTA landing point workable for India and Britain. The second Voice of Global South Summit on 17th of November, that is Friday, but in a virtual format. Now, this event marks a continuation of India's commitment to furthering and consolidating collaborations and convergences in and within Global South grouping. The upcoming second Voice of Global South Summit will also accentuate the outcomes from the various G20 meetings during India's presidency. It may be recalled the first summit saw the participation of at least 125 nations from Global South, facilitating the exchange of diverse perspectives on this shared platform. Akshay Dongre of DD India gets us more in this report.
India will be hosting the second summit of the Global South nations on 17th November. The Voice of the Global South Summit will be held in virtual mode and in continuation with the first Voice of Global South Summit held in January during India's G20 presidency.
This would be an opportunity, tomorrow's summit, for sharing with the countries of the Global South the key outcomes achieved in various G20 meetings over the course of India's presidency. You would recall that during the first Voice of Global South Summit in January, this is one of the things that we did, part of what Prime Minister had said, reach out, hear the voices of the Global South and see how we can mainstream that, give them more attention and put them on the high tables. I think we have been able to do that, and I think this is a good opportunity to tell members of the Global South what has been really developments over our presidency.
During the first summit of the unique initiative, leaders from 125 countries of the Global South came together to share their perspectives and priorities on a common platform. The second Voice of Global South Summit will be structured into 10 sessions. The inaugural and concluding sessions would be at head of state government level and hosted by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The theme of the inaugural leaders session will be Together for Everyone's Growth with Everyone's Trust, and that of the concluding leaders session is Global South, Together for One Future. In addition, there will be 8 ministerial level sessions with the following themes: Foreign Minister Session, India and Global South Emerging Together for a Better Future; Education Minister Session, Making Human Resources Future Ready; Finance Minister Session, Financing People-Centric Development; Environment Minister Session, Sustainable Solutions for Climate Resilience and Climate Finance; Second Foreign Minister Session, Global South and One Development; Energy Minister Session, Affordable and Inclusive Energy Transition for Sustainable Development; Health Minister Session, Solution from Global South for One Health; and Commerce Trade Minister Session, Global South and Resilient Supply Chain. The second Voice of Global South Summit come at a time of increasing conflicts in various parts of the world, extreme weather patterns due to climate change, and rising socio-economic challenges that disproportionately hinder the growth of the developing and underdeveloped world. The summit aims to bring together the Global South on a common platform to tackle these challenges. Akshay Dongre, DD India.
In other news, India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh attended the 10th ASEAN Defence Ministers Meeting Plus In Jakarta, in Indonesia, India has pressed for its commitment to work with ASEAN and Plus countries to ensure peace, prosperity and security in the region. The meeting comes at a time of escalated fighting in Myanmar between the army and the insurgent groups with the Myanmar, refugees coming into Mizoram, which is one of the northeastern states of India. Now, in another development, at the ASEAN meet, Indonesia has officially handed over the chairmanship of the ASEAN Defence Ministers meeting to Laos. More details coming up next.
India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh reiterated India's commitment to freedom of navigation, overflight and unimpeded lawful commerce in the international waters in accordance with international laws. The Indian minister's comments came at the 10th ASEAN Defence Ministers meeting Plus in Jakarta, Indonesia on Thursday. The Indian minister reiterated India's commitment to work with ASEAN and Plus countries to ensure peace, prosperity and security, which is an apt theme for the year's EAM S. India also proposed to co-chair the expert working group on counter-terrorism. This proposal was endorsed by the EAM S as terrorism remains a serious concern to countries in the region. The Indian Defence Minister also held a meeting with the Indonesian Defence Minister Prabowo Subianto in Jakarta. The defence chiefs of two nations recommitted to further strengthen cooperation, particularly in the maritime domain. The Indian Defence Minister also met Vietnamese Defence Minister General Phan Vang Yang. The leaders reviewed progress in implementation of the joint vision statement on Indian-Vietnam defence partnership towards 2030. In another development, Indonesia officially handed over the chairmanship of ASEAN Defence Ministers meeting to Laos, the last of the cohort of meetings during its ASEAN chairmanship.
We have witnessed the Lao PDR's commitment to regional peace and stability. Therefore, I am confident that under its leadership, the ADMM will continue to flourish. I have full faith in the capabilities, wisdom and the leadership of the Lao PDR's Minister of National Defense.
The annual meeting came as conflict rages in Middle East and Ukraine. Indonesia's Defence Minister Prabowo Subianto held separate bilateral talks with Russian Vice Minister of Defense Alexander Fomin and US Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin on the sidelines of ASEAN Defence Ministers meeting in Jakarta. Fuzail Ahmed reporting for DD India.
The Indian Minister of State for Defence and Tourism, Ajay K. Bhatt, met with his UAE counterpart Mohammad Al Bawardi at the Dubai Air Show. The meeting focused on reviewing ongoing defence cooperation and exploring new avenues for collaboration. Ajay K. Bhatt is currently in Dubai for the Dubai Air Show 2023, accompanied by a delegation of senior officials and experts from the defence sector. 5 defence public sector undertakings, or PSUs, that is HAL, BDL, MIDHANI and DRDO as well as BEL are also participating in the event in Dubai. Well, after locating what they describe as the entrance to a Hamas tunnel under an evacuated hospital in northern Gaza, Israeli army engineers filled the passage with exploding gel and hit the detonator. Clearing tunnels is an important part of Israel's military campaign against Hamas in the Gaza Strip, as they say Israeli hostages are being held in some of these tunnels. Meanwhile, Israel has ordered civilians to leave 4 towns in the southern part of the Gaza Strip on fears its war against Hamas could spread to areas it had told people were safe. Israeli President Isaac Herzog has said that a very strong force may be needed to remain in Gaza in the near future to prevent Hamas from re-emerging after the conflict. Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden has said that he had made it clear to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that a two-state solution was the only way to resolve the Israel-Palestine conflict and that occupying Gaza would be, and I quote, a big mistake, unquote. Meanwhile, Israeli military chief Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari has confirmed that the Israeli troops found weapons, combat gear and technological equipment inside the Al-Shifa hospital.
In the hospital, we have found weapons, intelligence, military technology and military equipment. Additionally, an operational command center and technological assets belonging to Hamas. The technology and the materials have been sent to intelligence for inspection and review.
Israel claims its fighter jet struck top Hamas leader Ismaili Haniyahi's house in Gaza. It added that Haniyeh's house was being used as a terrorist infrastructure and that it often served as a meeting point for Hamas senior leaders to direct terror attacks against Israeli civilians and soldiers. Haniyeh, who is Hamas's political bureau chief, is currently living in Qatar. Six injured people were rushed into the hospital in Jerusalem after three suspected Palestinian attackers fired at a checkpoint between Jerusalem and the West Bank city. Israel's ambulance service said one person was critically injured, but no casualties were reported as yet. The Israeli authorities claim the three terrorists who came in a suspicious vehicle and opened fire were neutralized by security forces stationed at the crossing. We will be joined by DD India's Sarah Coates from Tel Aviv in a short while from now to get us more information as far as Al-Shifa hospital evacuation is concerned. And remember, IDF has also claimed that some weapons have been obtained in those raids reportedly. Sarah, I believe, is joining us live from Tel Aviv. Sarah, to begin with, what is the latest, the ground situation as far as Al-Shifa hospital is concerned? What more are you picking up, especially the entrance tunnels to the entrance to the Hamas tunnels that Israeli army claims have been located?
Well, look, what we're hearing now is not so much, given that there's once again a communications blackout inside the Gaza Strip. Both of the two main telecommunications providers have now gone dark simply due to the lack of fuel. So getting information out of that coastal enclave is very difficult. But look, what we can tell you over the last couple of hours is that there were reportedly intense gunfights outside Al-Shifa hospital right around its perimeter. And the Israeli military does say that it is still conducting this specific raid, this specific operation inside Al-Shifa hospital. It says it's going room to room, floor to floor, looking for any evidence that Hamas might be using this as its nerve centre, its command centre. Now, it just did come out a little while ago, the Israeli military, to say that it's now found a laptop and other devices which do suggest or do prove that these hostages, or have information, I should say, on these 240 hostages who remain inside the Gaza Strip. Well, we've seen pictures of a bulldozer, an armoured bulldozer accompanied by Israeli tanks going around that hospital premise. And we do understand, this is according to Israeli media, that that dozer there is to knock out the entries to these reported tunnels. Apparently, they have been concreted up. So, look, we're still yet to see evidence of these tunnels that would be provided by the military. So far, it's only shown pictures of guns and other Hamas paraphernalia overnight. And Hamas has been saying that this is all lies, saying that it does not have a command centre there in Al-Shifa hospital. But look, one of the doctors from that hospital's just spoken out, calling the situation catastrophic, saying that doctors and medical workers have reportedly been detained and are being interrogated by Israeli forces.
Israel also says, Sarah, that entry into Gaza's Shifa hospital compound and whatever is happening as we speak will not mark an end to this military operation against Hamas. In a way, they are hinting that there are more difficult days to come as far as this conflict is concerned.
Look, I'm really having trouble picking up what you're hearing there, but what you're saying there, rather. But I'll just give you a situation as to what we're hearing in other parts of the Gaza Strip. The Israeli military has reportedly been dropping leaflets down in the south, in the eastern part of Khan Yunis, warning these people who live down there to now move out of their homes and evacuate further south. Now, this is the same situation that we saw over the last few weeks in the northern part of the Gaza Strip, this leaflet dropping, telling people to move out for their own safety, to go south down toward the Rafah crossing. But look, the humanitarian situation down in the south is being described as catastrophic. We just heard the head of UNRWA, Filippo Lazzarini, speaking out from Geneva. He said that he believes that there is a deliberate attempt to strangle our operations in Gaza, saying that the entire operation of UNRWA, which is the UN aid agency that delivers aid to Palestinians, is at risk of collapsing. Now, we heard horrific stories from him there with apparently one toilet for 800 people. He said it's like going back to the Middle Ages. We also heard reports coming in from the ground that due to a lack of fuel, or no fuel, I should say, and also no electricity, that all water pumps have stopped working, all sewerage treatment facilities have stopped working, and there is now raw sewage pouring out all over the ground down near the Rafah crossing.
All right, many thanks, Sara Coates, for joining us live from Tel Aviv and sharing those important details. Thank you. Moving on, now German authorities are conducting nationwide searches of 54 locations across 7 federal states related to alleged Hezbollah-backed Islamic Center in Hamburg. The Islamic Center of Hamburg is under suspicion of supporting Hezbollah and acting against Germany's constitutional order.
Our security authorities are investigating the Islamic Center Hamburg and several possible sub-organizations. We are investigating that this organization is directed against a constitutional order. We are also investigating whether the Lebanese terrorist organization Hezbollah is being supported from here.
Still to come on DD India News Hour. US President Joe Biden announces resumption of talks with China. India's External Minister Dr. Jaishankar wraps up his 5-day visit to United Kingdom. And a delegation from Oslo Metropolitan University, Norway, visits India for educational exchange program.
Always welcoming. The vibe of Punjab is larger than life. Warm up to grandeur that's beyond compare. And history that's dotted with tales of bravery. Smiling soul of India, where music, art, cuisine and culture comes together to create an unforgettable impression. Punjab is all set to win your hearts with its unique and colorful extravaganza.
You're watching DD India's News Hour. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and let's move on to more news. The much-anticipated meeting between Chinese President Xi Jinping and US President Joe Biden took place on the sidelines of APEC summit in San Francisco on Wednesday. Joe Biden and Xi Jinping agreed to open a presidential hotline and resume military-to-military communications, showing some sort of tangible progress in their first face-to-face talks in a year. DD India's Ira Spitzer has more from the summit location.
This highly anticipated meeting between the two leaders of the world's largest economies has wrapped up here on the sidelines of the APEC summit in San Francisco. Now, this meeting took place at a location about an hour's drive south of the city, and Presidents Biden and Xi spent about 4 hours together. The meeting included a working lunch followed by a walk in the gardens of this palatial estate where the meeting was being held. Now, expectations were somewhat low going in as far as at least having any major announcements on some of the big areas of disagreement between the two countries, including the U.S. and China's position on the island of Taiwan, which China claims as its own territory, as well as the conflict in Ukraine and the conflict in the Middle East. So we didn't see any major breakthroughs on those issues, although the two sides did discuss that. Where we did see some progress, perhaps the biggest outcome of the meeting was the resumption of military-to-military communications between the two countries. Those communications had essentially been cut off from the Chinese side after a series of disagreements, including the visit by then Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan last year. So essentially, at that point, there was no one that the U.S. could call in order to manage anything with the Chinese military. So that raised concerns about the competition veering into conflict, as the Biden administration likes to describe it. So that's one big outcome. And the other big outcome from the U.S. side was an agreement to work with the Chinese government to limit Chinese firms who are involved in the production of fentanyl components. Fentanyl is the powerful synthetic opioid, which has been largely responsible for the major overdose crisis here in the United States. So another potentially important agreement there. But certainly just the fact that these two countries meeting at all, given the amount of tension in the relationship, as seen as a victory, but perhaps no major developments in some of these global conflicts where both countries play a major role. Ira Spitzer reporting for DD India at the APEC Summit in San Francisco.
And divulging the details of the Xi-Biden meeting, which reportedly lasted for about 4 hours, President Biden said that the two leaders also spoke about the Israel-Hamas conflict. And hitting hard on Hamas, Biden said that Hamas committed war crimes by having terrorist headquarters inside a hospital.
The first war crime is being committed by Hamas by having their headquarters, their military, hidden under a hospital. And that's a fact. That's what's happened. Israel did not go in with large number of troops, did not raid, did not rush everything down. They've gone in, and they've gone in with their soldiers carrying weapons or guns. I think it's going to stop when Hamas no longer maintains the capacity to murder and abuse and just do horrific things to the Israelis.
Earlier at the meeting, Xi Jinping called the U.S.-China relationship the most important bilateral relationship in the world, adding that Biden and him shoulder heavy responsibilities for the world and for history.
The China-U.S. relationship, which is the most important bilateral relationship in the world, should be perceived and envisioned in a broad context of the accelerating global transformations unseen in a century. It should develop in a way that benefits our two peoples and fulfills our responsibility for human progress. China-U.S. relationship has never been smooth sailing over the past 50 years or more, and it always faces problems of one kind or another. Yet it has kept moving forward amid twists and turns. For two large countries like China and the United States, turning their back on each other is not an option.
President Joe Biden referred to Chinese President Xi Jinping as a dictator. Now, ironically, Biden's remarks at the end of his meeting with Xi Jinping came after he was asked if he still considers Xi Jinping a dictator.
Talking to our competitors and the key, and just talking, just being blunt with one another, so there's no misunderstanding, as a key element to maintaining global stability and delivering for the American people. Well, look, he is. I mean, he's a dictator in the sense that he is a guy who runs a country that is a communist country that's based on a form of government totally different than ours.
And Biden's remarks risk derailing progress made at the talks with China, now hitting back at the U.S. president, calling his remarks irresponsible.
This kind of statement is extremely incorrect and irresponsible political manipulation which China opposes. It needs to be pointed out that there are always some ill-intentioned individuals attempting to damage Sino-US relations, but their attempts will not succeed.
As U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping agreed to resume military communication and make efforts to mend ties. What does this temporary truce mean for India? Jessica Taneja of DD India spoke with Nilanthi Samarnaike, who is an expert at the United States Institute of Peace. Samarnaike said that Xi-Biden meeting will in no way undermine India's significance or importance in Indo-Pacific, and more.
We have with us Nilanthi Samarnaike. She's a visiting expert at the US Institute of Peace. Thank you for speaking to DD India. Well, developments overnight have shown us that Biden and Xi Jinping met. They have decided to mend their fraught relationship. Given America's Indo-Pacific strategy that was released last year, it clearly stated that it sees India playing a key role in the region and also saying that it supports India's continued rise. With the developments I just spoke about, does it now impact, or will it have any impact on America's Indo-Pacific strategy?
U.S.-China relationship has had difficulties in recent years, so this news suggests that there may be some toning down of some of the rhetoric and some of the tensions as well. But independently, the U.S.-India relations have just been soaring over the past decade, and so that appears likely to continue, in my view.
Right, and you know, we're looking at a multipolar world and India playing a crucial role in that. And many of the nations, of course, from a very long time have been wanting that both America and China resolve their differences and the kind of tensions that have been heightened over the years. How should we in India be looking at this development, particularly given its focus on our strengthened relationship with America and how we're going to move with our relationship with China?
Well, the ramping down of tensions between the United States and China can only be a good thing, and really not just for regional security, but for global security. So we'll have to see. This is late-breaking news. We'll have to see how long, to what extent this will continue, but I think this is overall positive.
How would you map the progress of India playing an important role when it comes to America's Indo-Pacific strategy so far?
It's a great question. India has been increasing its military capabilities. It's also been expanding its diplomatic outreach. So I think that aligns well in terms of the U.S. Indo-Pacific strategy.
Affairs Minister of India, Dr. Jaishankar, who concluded his 5-day visit to UK on Wednesday, took up the matter of free trade agreement among other issues during the meetings with British leaders and hoped that the two countries would find a landing point, quote-unquote, which is workable for both countries. Briefing the media, External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Arindam Bagchi said that the minister had discussions with UK leaders and both countries were working for a solution.
Yes, he discussed this with the Prime Minister, UK Prime Minister. I think he also discussed with the newly sworn-in UK Foreign Secretary. There are discussions going on. EAM spoke about bringing it to a landing spot. But if you want to know the exact status of negotiations, I would refer you to the trade negotiators. I don't think it's appropriate for us to comment on that. But yes, I think both sides are engaged on this important issue to see if we can find a solution or a final conclusion.
A delegation from Oslo Metropolitan University, Norway, is visiting India for their educational exchange program, under which they are visiting educational institutions to observe the functioning and the changes India is doing to enhance educational ecosystem. DD India correspondent Kriti Vadera reports.
We are mandated.
24 delegates from Oslo Metropolitan University, Norway, visited Central Institute of Educational Technology in New Delhi as part of their study tour. This delegation includes 19 pre-service teachers with their professors.
My name is Priya.
These pre-service teachers were keen to know the functioning of Indian education system. Key areas of their exploration involved research and development, training of teachers at pre-service and in-service level.
It's a very, very good experience to be in India, and we've been coming with students for many years. So our focus in India is to learn about Indian culture, different religions, and also here in Delhi we want to learn more about the education system. We are of course interested in reforms, curricula, what the debates are, and so on.
The keenness to experience the virtual reality labs filled the delegates with enthusiasm. These augmented reality labs are used by teachers for their lesson plans.
It was very inspiring to see that they have different techniques and resources here, and how they accommodate learning and teaching for those who have special needs.
It's been a very good experience. We tried the virtual learning glasses, so it's been a very good experience to take back home to Norway.
It has been very educational and very fun to see the differences and the similarities between the curriculum in Norway and India. So it's been very fun and very educational.
India has seen revolutionary changes in terms of digitalization of education with the implementation of New Education Policy 2020. And the Global Fraternity of Education is praising these digital changes in India. With camera person Ashish Sharma, I'm Kriti Vadhera reporting from New Delhi for DD India.
Global Media Congress, which is a premier event bringing together media professionals from around the world, concluded in Abu Dhabi, UAE on Thursday. The theme being sustainability and innovation, the event addressed a wide spectrum of topics including artificial intelligence, social media, digital transformation and the role of media in shaping public discourse. Mohammad Jalal Al-Rayasi, Director General of the Emirates News Agency, highlighted the importance of the event.
The Global Media Congress today, we can see how this is important to bring people together to talk about our experience, about technology that we have, and what we can do together. The best thing in the Global Media Congress that we have everyone from different parts of the world talking to each other, trying to communicate and try to learn from each other. And that's will help us a lot in development of our media sector and also our organization. I'm very happy that this platform is providing such a service for our partners from around the world.
Indian International Science Festival 2023 is set to unfold in the Indian city of Faridabad from January 17 to 20th next year. The theme of the present edition is Science and Technology, Public Outreach and Amrit Kal. Addressing a curtain-raiser event of IISF in New Delhi, India's Minister for Science and Technology, Dr. Jitendra Singh, said that this IISF is a festival to celebrate the achievements of India's scientific and technological advancements with students, innovators, craftsmen, farmers, scientists and technocrats from India and abroad.
As you would appreciate that in the last 8 to 10 years, under Prime Minister Narendra Modi, India has made rapid steps as far as science is concerned, innovation is concerned, technology is concerned. And in some of the areas, we have actually proved our mettle to the rest of the world. Some of our success stories are being attained globally, like for example, the Chandrayaan, like for example, the COVID vaccine, which has placed India as a frontline nation. But what is even more distinct in the last 10 years of Prime Minister Modi's rule is that we have shown to the world how best science, technology and innovation can be used to bring ease of living in the life of a common man.
And now let's take a look at other stories making news. As pollution level in Delhi continues to remain in the severe category, the banks of Yamuna River of Delhi are clogged with toxic foam. Delhi has been tackling with extreme pollution with the AQI still above 400 in many parts of the city. Union Railway Minister of India Ashwini Vaishnav arrived at New Delhi railway station on Thursday to have a close look on the arrangements of the railway management. On the visit, he also interacted with passengers. Talking to the press, he said that the status of special trains running around festivals has been improved with number of trains being increased. India-Sri Lanka joint military exercise Mitra Shakti 2023 began today in Pune, featuring 120 Indian troops and personnel from Sri Lanka. The focus is on practicing sub-conventional operations, counter-terrorist tactics and enhanced interoperability. The exercise incorporates tactical actions such as raid, search, destroy missions and on 22nd of November 2023 in the state of Gujarat. Also coming up, Spain's parliament voted to make Pedro Sanchez as prime minister for another term. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Sakal Bhatt. Well, let's move on with the discussion on the lead story. All right, we are joined by guests. All right, we're joined by two special panelists to discuss the significance of the Voice of the Global South Summit, which will be hosted by India tomorrow in a virtual format. Thank you very much, both of you gentlemen, for joining us. Professor Swain, to begin with, your opening remarks, especially the timings of the summit from the conflict perspective, what is happening in Israel, Hamas, Russia, Ukraine, and this being seen as a continuation of the discussions under the India's G20 presidency that took place in September this year. Professor
Thank you, Sakal. I think first of all, it is important to underline India is doing something unusual, holding two summit meetings of Global South in the same year, and also holding two summit meetings of the G20 in the same year. And of course, as you mentioned, currently the issue of Israel-Hamas conflict is globally high in consciousness. So just like in the first Voice of Global South Summit meeting, Ukraine was an important issue for discussion. I believe that in this as well, the Israel-Hamas issue will be for debate. But of course, India will try to make sure that it stays on course and the focus remains on issues of development and global governance, which is where India has constantly tried to bring Global South, which in 1950s used to be a pejorative term, and it stayed on the margins of global decision making. India's effort has been in bridge building between G20, which was originally G7, the high ivory tower elite, with the Global South, and this effort to bring them closer together to develop holistic approach to global governance. I think that will be an effort of India to keep the focus on that, but definitely issue of Israel-Hamas war will be also in debate during these meetings.
Ambassador Sanjay Bhattacharya ji, former Secretary MEA, thank you, sir, for joining us. Your opening remarks, please, your thoughts as far as the timings of the summit hosted by India is concerned.
I think India's attempt has been to incorporate the Global South into the global decision-making format as much as possible. And therefore, very soon after we had assumed the presidency of the G20, Prime Minister hosted the first Voice of the Global South Summit about 10 months ago in January. And since then, we've had the inputs of that first summit being put into the G20 agenda leading up to the summit that was held recently. And now that we are on the verge of having the virtual G20 summit, it makes sense that we want to recapture the ideas of the Global South so that before the next G20 virtual summit, we are better equipped in articulating the voice and aspirations of the Global South. As Professor Swaran Singh had also mentioned, I think the focus will be on both the items on the agenda, one which is rising from the Sherpa track, which is largely political and security related, and the other, which is very important for the Global South, which is the sustainable development related issues, and also how we bring about change in global governance.
Yes. Climate also, talking about the challenges, Professor Swain, your thoughts, extreme weather patterns due to climate change and rising socio-economic challenges and disproportionately which hinder the growth of the developing and underdeveloped worlds, the kind of issues that India is going to spearhead in the summit, in the second edition of the summit.
Two things. One, that issue of climate crisis is perhaps the most quintessential issue that requires a global approach. On several international challenges, approach of G7 has not really delivered, and the whole effort India is making is to bring Global South into decision making so that approach becomes holistic and therefore we can see some results. Second, India has already demonstrated its leadership in leading both International Solar Alliance and during the G20 summit meeting, the coalition of biofuel was also launched by India. In that sense, by demonstrating things that India has already done on the ground, achieved, particularly International Solar Alliance is such a large alliance. Now, India is trying to make sure that both the issues that are priority issues of Global South, as also perspective and strategies that Global South has always thought of, are brought into the global decision making. And that is why I think this 22nd meeting of 22nd November meeting of the G20 is preceded by this Global South Summit tomorrow, so that again India is able to carry forward that message of Global South to the high table of G20 meetings, so that decisions made in G20 summit meeting are able to be actually implemented on the ground by taking everybody along. And I think bringing African Union on board was an excellent demonstration of India bringing Global South into global decision making.
And the larger message, Ambassador Bhattacharya, sir, that, well, India is going to send across tomorrow. I'm sure the world will be keenly watching what leaders are going to put across, especially coming close on the heels of a very, very successful G20 summit under India's presidency.
Well, the voice of the Global South Summit has been very carefully structured so that it articulates and discusses a very broad range of issues. But I think the focus will really be on the development challenges and the development aspirations of the Global South. Now, as you're aware, the Global South has actually experienced significant development, but it still faces various challenges. And India has now several examples that it can offer. One of the things that will propel global development in a sustainable manner is the issue of technology coming in a more sustainable and holistic fashion. So the kind of platforms that we have developed, for instance, the digital platforms and infrastructure that we brought about, which not only brings about a seamless transition, which promotes equity and efficiency at the same time, but also makes it more accessible to more members of the Global South to achieve this. The second question that will come about, and I think India will also focus on this, is how the South can collaborate and also utilize the resources from the North in a more efficient manner. Part of this will be the transfer of funds. Some of it will be in climate, some of it will be in energy, some of it will be in other core sustainable development issues. Some of these would also pertain to the issues of debt, because we've seen around the world that there is a rising incidence of debt in the developing world, in the Global South. And we need to have a more comprehensive approach of how we deal with this debt issue. The third issue that I think we will definitely focus on is how security and development are, in a sense, interrelated. We are facing two very serious challenges in the world today. You'd mentioned earlier about what is happening in Gaza and also in Ukraine. And these pose challenges to development aspirations of the Global South. And therefore, we need to have an approach so that these issues are taken on, so that we have an approach. And Prime Minister had said it earlier, that this is not the era for war, and we need to have solutions that actually address the aspirations of the people. And I think the motto of the Voice of the Global South Summit also brings this right to the forefront.
Right. Professor Swain, you want to add to that, especially the challenges bit?
Yeah, sure. I think, Sakal, what gives me confidence that India's effort to bring Global South to the center stage of G20 and global governance is the fact that now coming summit meetings of the coming presidencies of G20 are going to continuously be with the Global South countries. India, followed by Brazil, followed by South Africa, which are also IBSA, if you remember, triangular relationship that India has had. So the fact that Global South is being brought to center stage and the leadership of G20 will continuously be with Global South means that India's imprint in bringing Global South to the center stage of global governance will bear fruit in the coming times and will be enduring in that sense of transforming the nature of of G20 summit meetings.
All right, we'll leave it there. Many thanks, Professor Swaran Singh from School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University. Thank you very much, and always a pleasure to talk to Ambassador Sanjay Bhattacharya, former Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining us. Thanks. And now let's just shift our focus to what's happening as far as Russia-Ukraine conflict is concerned. Ukraine reportedly has destroyed 16 drones and 1 missile, which were launched by Russia in an overnight strike. Ukrainian forces deployed air defenses in the western region of the country, while an air raid alert was also declared in the several regions. Kyiv has also accused Russia of targeting shelling at a power station in the eastern Donetsk region. To celebrate the contribution and the achievements of the fisheries and fish farmers and other stakeholders, the Government of India is organizing the Global Fisheries Conference India 2023. The two-day event will be held on 21st and 22nd of November 2023 in Indian state of Gujarat. DD India's Siddharth Bharadwaj reports.
India has more than 7,500 kilometers of coastal line, and fisheries contributes an important part of the economies of coastal areas. It also contributes to the overall GDP of the nation. With an aim to provide a platform to various stakeholders and investors on a global level, Indian government is hosting Global Fisheries Conference India 2023. Indian government has said that as a result of the schemes initiated in the last 9 years, the fish production has increased manifold.
Internationally, उसमें क्या संभावनाएं हैं, क्या challenges हैं, उन सभी का मंथन करने के लिए ये वर्ल्ड लेवल का एक ग्लोबल कॉन्फ्रेंस और वर्ल्ड फिशरीज डे के मनाने के उपक्रम में उसी प्रकार से मनाने का निर्णय लिया है.
Further, the Indian government is confident that this conference will provide many benefits to stakeholders and investors and will bring them under one roof.
Fisheries department and this fishery sector is growing. Same time, we are concerned about the sustainability also. Because of the sustainability, fish ranching is the major and inclusion of new technology. There is business-to-business meetings are there, bilateral meetings are there, and you can enter the business collaborations and technical exchanges.
Fisheries sector in India contributes a lot to the Indian economy. India's third largest fish producing and second largest aquaculture producing nation in the world. Various initiatives taken by the government like the Blue Revolution has given a big boost to this sector. The Global Fisheries Conference India 2023 promises an enriching blend of knowledge sharing, networking and actionable insight in fisheries and aquaculture and its way forward.
Global Fisheries Conference India 2023 will provide a common platform to various stakeholders from around the world, and about 5,000 people are expected to attend the event. The fisheries sector plays a significant role in India's economy, and it also provides livelihood to millions of fish farmers. With camera person Gopal, this is Siddharth for DD India, New Delhi.
And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. Spain's parliament voted to make Pedro Sanchez prime minister for another term on Thursday, ending a protracted deadlock after an inconclusive general elections in July. As the vote was completed, some of the 400 protesters outside Parliament shook barricades erected by police and shouted their dissent. A Russian artist, Alexander Kochenko, who replaced supermarket price tags with messages calling for an end to Moscow war in Ukraine, was jailed for 7 years on Thursday for knowingly spreading false information about the Russian army. The artist, who has already spent over a year and a half in prison, has denied the formal charge of knowingly spreading false information about the army. 30 companies associated with the Indian Chamber of Commerce appeared in the Vitex and Dubai Solar Show. The India Pavilion was inaugurated by Sunil Kumar, Consul at the Consulate General of India in Dubai. Engaging in sectors such as power, energy, water, solar and engineering, these companies explored bilateral trade opportunities with the UAE. Held annually in Dubai, Vitex is a leading international exhibition and conference dedicated to water, energy, sustainability and green technologies. And still to come on DD India News Hour. India celebrates National Press Day to highlight the importance of a free and responsible press in a democratic society. India's President Draupadi Murmu presents a new standard of bodyguard and renewed regimental standard to the President's bodyguard.
Welcome to Jaipur.
Thanks for staying with us. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Sakal Bhatt. And now let's move on to some more news. The curtain came down on the third day Global Media Congress in the capital of United Arab Emirates. The third and the final day started with the keynote address by Dr. Mohammed Al Kuwaiti, head of cybersecurity in UAE government, on cyber pulse in the media world. He called for bolstering cooperation between the UAE government and private sector to counter the challenge. He also called for awareness creation on cybersecurity. This day also features speeches and panel discussions focusing on the intersection of media and sports. They offered insights into the dynamic and rapidly evolving sector. Representatives of global news agency alliances, unions, federations participated in roundtables to discuss cooperation, challenges, copyrights, keeping pace with modern technologies, including artificial intelligence. Well, on the occasion of the National Press Day in India, India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar said that the advent of artificial intelligence has transformed the way we receive and consume news, information and entertainment. He added that though artificial intelligence has the potential to harm, but we must acknowledge that this technology is here to stay and we must adapt to the changing landscape.
We must not allow artificial intelligence to compromise the values that are the very foundation of a free and vibrant press. It is imperative that we maintain a free and fair media environment. The fourth estate plays a pivotal role in a democratic society by serving as the watchdog of government, holding those in power accountable, and providing citizens with the information they need to make informed decisions.
Highlighting the significance of the day, India's Minister for Information and Broadcasting, Anurag Thakur, said that National Press Day honours the tireless commitment of journalists dedicated to strengthen our democracy.
We firmly believe that the media must act as a responsible pillar of our democracy, calling out fake narratives in the open. It is essential to safeguard the interest of our nation and avoid providing space to anti-India views that can threaten the unity and integrity we hold dear.
Indian President Draupadi Murmu presented a new standard of bodyguard and renewed regimental standard to the President's bodyguard at India's President's House, Rashtrapati Bhavan. President's bodyguard is the oldest regiment in the Indian Army, having been raised as the Governor General's bodyguard way back in 1773. In a brief remarks, the President congratulated all officers and soldiers of President's bodyguard on the completion of 250 glorious years of the regiment. And now you're watching DD India News Hour. It's now time for some sports news. First up, Cricket World Cup. Australia is at 203 for the loss of 7 wickets in the semi-final match against South Africa in India's eastern city of Kolkata. The winner of this match will be set up with the summit clash with India on Sunday. Earlier, South Africa was bundled out for 212 runs as Australian pacers such as Mitchell Starc and Josh Hazlewood wreaked haywark. Proteas lost 4 wickets for 24 runs. However, David Miller stood tall in runs, and Miller was out after slamming a century in 48th over. And in reply, Australia got off to a flying start. David Warner and Travis Head put on 60 runs for the opening wicket in less than 7 overs. head scored a blistering 62. Following the blitz, Australia kept on losing wickets as Keshav Maharaj and Tabrez Shamsi tightened the screws. Well, that's all we have for you in this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can always reach us on Facebook, connect with us on X, that is formerly Twitter, and you can also reach out to us on Instagram. We will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Sakal Bhatt signing off from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.